How do different workout styles affect mobility? r/bodyweight fitness posted about an hour ago, and the title of the article is just style of training. So I recently purchased a bodyweight bodybuilder plan. There's a name of a specific professional and a specific plan. I'm not actually familiar with the person or the plan, so I'm not going to comment about that. I'm not going to dissect the program and say whether or not, I'm not going to share my thoughts on the specific plan because I don't know about it. But I thought that we could relate this back to us pretty well. The program suggests that you do one exercise per movement, and that means one exercise for horizontal push, one for vertical push, one for vertical pull, etc. It just kind of goes down. Will this be enough volume to get stronger and bigger? Because I seem to find myself being done with the workout in under 60 minutes. So is that enough volume? By the way, before I answer this, my beverage of choice today, I've stepped away from the hot chocolate today, sipping on some wonderful cold 911 from David's Tea. That is just delicious. I don't have a cold, but it's just by far my favorite tasting. It's the best tasting tea at David's Tea. I actually don't know if it's an American company or only a Canadian company, but first time I had it was in Pearson Airport. It was awesome, and then I was on a flight going to Vancouver, ended up in Whistler, and throughout my trip I had a lot of cold 911 even though I wasn't sick. So after I came back, I just started buying them by the tins, and it's just so delicious. So delicious. There's like a peppermint part of it, and I generally don't have the best sense of smell, and just the peppermint plus some of the other ingredients in it really helps clear out my nose a little bit. Sometimes I am more stuffier than other days, and cold 911, at least it tastes good, it smells good, and it seems to help me out. But most importantly, I just like sipping on a hot drink. So anyways, back to this. Is doing one exercise enough for you? So the short answer is it depends. There are multiple ways that you could get stronger and get bigger. That comes down to, I would say, progressive overload. So if there's enough stimulus during those lifts that there is progressive overload on a week-to-week basis, then it is probably going to be enough. But you have to be very aware of 4 or 5 different factors, and you have to look at if a combination of these 4 or 5 factors are being changed in a way that makes each exercise harder. For example, if you want to be, just use a random exercise, if you want to be better at bench press, and you're only going to do bench press, well, then you have to look at the variables that you have available to you. You have reps, sets, rest, tempo, and weight. I guess there are more variations if you want to be a bit more technical, if you want to do a bench press with chains or bands, or if you want to do it bilaterally or unilaterally. But then I guess if it's unilateral, it's on a bench press, it would be something else, be a dumbbell press. Anyway, so if we just work with kind of the more basic elements that you have, so rep, sets, rest, tempo, and then weight. So those 5. If a combination of these are changing each week, and each week it's getting harder, then it should. Because if you say, let's say in week 1, I'm just using rough numbers, I don't know who this individual is. If in week 1 you're doing bench press and you have 135 pounds and you're doing 135 pounds for 10 reps for 3 sets, each set you are resting for 45 seconds, and your tempo, you have a really slow tempo. You go 2 second on the eccentric, 1 second pause, 2 second on the concentric, and a 1 second pause. If you have that, and you continue, and you do that 2 to 3 times a week, and the next week you just choose one of those variables and you make it harder for yourself. Instead of 135 pounds, you go to 5 pounds heavier, 140, 145. If you continue to progressively overload yourself with that, that could work. If in 1 week you go from 10 reps to 12 to 15, if you change the sets from 2 sets to 3 sets to 4 sets to 5 sets, if you change the rest intervals and you're changing it from 45 seconds to 30 seconds to 25 seconds, rest is a very challenging one. If you change the tempo and you really focus on eccentrics and you really focus on long amounts of time under tension, that will also be a way that you can make this more challenging for yourself. But the question more importantly was, will this get me stronger and bigger? Those are slightly different goals. They can happen at the same time depending on your training age. It's slightly different in that strength, that also depends on how this person is perceiving becoming stronger. Are they looking at like absolute strength being better at just lifting an objectively heavy weight, or are they trying to improve relative strength, being strong pound for pound? Those things require slightly different stimulus, and being bigger to build hypertrophy, that typically requires, there are a lot of people that spend time in like the rep range of like 8 to 12 reps. The time under tension is long, the tempo is very long, very slow tempo, things like that. Who was this? Was it Polquin? Polquin, hypertrophy, strength, 8 weeks. Oh, was it from Charles Polquin? Oh, I forget who had this. Who was the... So, I forget exactly who made this, or who was the larger proponent of this, but there was one individual, I think it's Charles Polquin. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But there was one person that they would have somebody do strength training. They would focus on only strength for 6 weeks and then do only hypertrophy for 6 weeks and just keep on bouncing back and forth. The exercises themselves wouldn't change greatly, but they would basically spend a large period of time and say, let's spend 6 weeks working on your capacity to lift a heavier weight. So then in 6 weeks, if you can go from lifting 100 pounds to 130 pounds, well then, when you're stronger and you can lift a heavier weight and you're doing your reps of 8 to 12, because you have a foundation of increased strength, you can lift a heavier weight for 8 to 12 reps. So then it becomes easier for you to put on size. And when you build on size for 6 weeks, then you go and you bounce back and forth. Once again, this is not even what this program is. I don't know what the program is, but can you get stronger from doing only one exercise, like only one exercise of a horizontal push or horizontal pull, etc.? Yes, if you are aware of 5 of those factors: the rep, sets, rest, tempo, weight. If you just toy with that, that can definitely help you. But how does that relate to mobility? Oh yeah, that's one great thing, is like, at least with like working things with FRC work, functional range conditioning work, let's say there's like one specific goal that you want to improve. Let's say that you really want to improve something with your upper body strength. You want to improve your bench press, but you notice that because you've been doing bench press for so long, you just have like really, really poor internal rotation in your shoulders. And you want to at least promote some shoulder health while you do bench press, which bench press doesn't necessarily promote shoulder health, just as a precursor. maybe I could have given an example of like a landmine press. That might have been a better example because there's at least more scapular movement in that. But anyways, if you're trying to improve some upper body strength in a movement and you want to and you have a deficit, if you have some limiting mobility in your upper body, and with FRC, if we figure out that limiting factor for you is glenohumeral internal rotation, if there's high amount of GIRD, GIRD, glenohumeral internal rotation deficit, if you can barely internally rotate your humerus like 10 to 30 degrees passively, if like it's just really poor, what's great about doing specific mobility work is you don't need to collect a large amount of exercises and say, to improve shoulder health, to improve my GIRD, then I am going to do 6 different exercises. No, if you are missing something that is very specific, internal rotation in your glenohumeral joint, you can very easily just do one specific thing. You can go and you can look into doing a Pales rails. I know in previous episodes I've talked about this, Pales rails. You can do things like progressively angular isometric loading yourself, and you can do exercises to improve this very specifically. So I wanted to bring this up just to reiterate the point that although when you are trying to improve strength and hypertrophy for maybe athletic or aesthetic purposes, sometimes there is definitely benefit from having multiple exercises, doing horizontal push, horizontal pull, but the benefit, the joy, the simplicity in doing mobility work sometimes is that you're able to pinpoint one specific limiting thing and do one specific exercise to attack that. And God, that just makes things so much easier when you don't need to worry about doing 4 different things for shoulder internal rotation. What you don't need to do when you don't need to focus on so many things, you can just give your shoulder one assignment and say, this is your assignment for 7 days. Let's see how it improves. So, yeah, so that's my perspective on that. How does it change? Just stay true to the course of functional range conditioning work, and if you can find one problem area, find one specific exercise and really, really see that exercise through.